All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of What in the World. We have the absolute fortune. We have a Hollywood icon among us today, Mr. Joe Alves. He is a guy that a lot of younger folks might not know who he is, but a guy my age was terrified by this guy back in the early 70s. Joe, first of all, thank you for taking time out of your crazy schedule to join us. I know it's a lot going on, especially with Jaws this time of the year. So we do want to thank you for being here, there.
Right. And we're going on a long trip in 2 days. So we're going to eat
That's
some.
right. I had to get it in. I appreciate it.
All right.
Look, I got
Oh,
I got a quick question. I was looking at some of your filmology stuff. It looks like from about, and we discussed this before we started recording, about when this whole process with y'all started back in 1974. It looks like from 1974 to about 1988, you only slept about an hour a night because you were super busy. Your list of actual projects is absolutely insane.
it was a very, very busy time. After Jaws, uh, Stephen and I, when he was cutting, we were editing Jaws, we take a break, and we went skiing up to Mammoth in California. Ski, and a friend of mine had a condo up there, and we got stuck in the snow. And Stephen was supposed to do a movie called Bingo Long and his Traveling All Stars, and so I took a lot of magazines, Life magazines from that period, but it's about black baseball in the 30s. Now, today you get everything on your phone, all the information you want. Then we had to go to research and libraries and stuff. So anyway, we started talking about being along, and then he starts talking about this other movie he's thinking he's writing called Watch the Sky, and he gets really into Watch the Sky, and the spaceship comes down and these little aliens come out. And I said, boy, that sounds more interesting than this black baseball. Yeah, he says it's called Watch the Sky. So, okay, bottom line, he said, I don't have a deal. So that's it. We come back to LA. I get a call a couple of weeks later from John Badham, a director I worked with on Night Gallery. And he says he's directing Bingo Long and his Traveling All Stars. So I guess, well, Steven's not. So my next movie then, I don't hear from Steven, is Embryo with Rock Hudson. And I do that. And then that finished, I get a call from Steven, and he says, okay, I got a deal on this picture. We don't have a team together, but could you go find an interesting mountain? So this is for Columbia. So I go to the head of the Columbia, and he says, yeah, Joe, we're looking for an interesting mountain. Just go off and find it. I mean, nobody else is on the movie. And I look at Scenic USO, and I see there's Ship Rock, Chimney Rock, all these different rock, supposed to be interesting mountains. So I decide I'll fly to National Monument where all the presidents are and see how the back of that looks. Might be interesting shapes. Well, that doesn't work. So I see about this thing, Devil's Tower. So I drive to Wyoming. I end up driving 3,000 miles looking for this thing, and I see this. I'm in Gillette, Wyoming, and I'm driving, and I see this little peak thing, and then you go down, and it disappears, and you drive some more, and then it gets bigger, and then suddenly I'm at Devil's Tower, and it was unbelievable. It was so perfect for the movie. I ended up, as I say, driving 3,000, and I ended up looking at all the other ones, Shiprock, Chimney Rock, and I took photos. We had film then, 30.
Yeah. Yeah. Nothing was digital back then.
Yeah, 36 films. So, you take pictures and you pan it. So anyway, Devil's Tower became the thing, and then that became Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And so that was with Stephen, and it just became a very busy time. Close Encounters was a big movie. I ended up building, at the time, the largest set ever in the Guinness Book of Records, a movie set. I think later there was one of the James Bond movies that made a bigger set, but it was huge. So that's how that went. And then, of course, there's Jaws 2 came up, Jaws 3, and what have you.
What I also noticed in that stretch, a cult classic, Escape from New York. You're tied to that project also.
Oh, it was one of the most fun movies to make. Deborah Hill, I really liked Deborah, such a sweet lady. She died much too young. And John Carpenter was sort of a laid back guy. She was very, very, very busy. Okay, Joe, we got to do this, that. And John was more laid back, oh, yeah, we'll get to it, And so I took her, we were looking for somebody to do special effects. And I took her to somebody I knew that had worked on Star Wars and stuff. And so we finished the meeting. She said, "Oh, they're too expensive. We can't afford it." So they're used to really low budget movie. Yeah. The Halloween they did for $300,000, and now this is their big movie, $6 million. Well, it's a small movie for me because I came off of Close Encounters at 25 million. But the reason I did this is because after Jaws 2, I directed 85 days of second unit, and I was looking for pictures to direct, and I went on and nothing happened. So my agent said, "Look, I want you to meet these two young filmmakers, and maybe you should go to work for a while, and then we'll look for the director." So anyway, uh, so she said, "We can't afford those effects." So I said, "All right." And this is sort of interesting. So a friend of mine who was a director was having a party, and he had some people over, and he was working on a sci-fi thing, and he had this illustrator that was illustrating some monsters for him. And I ended up talking to him about these special effects, and he said, "Oh, we could do it, Raleigh Harper." I said, "Really? Oh, much cheaper." That was Jim Cameron. Remember Jim Cameron?
Oh
Did a
yeah.
few movies. So I hired Jim. This is how life goes, to do the effects for Escape from New York, and it was just really a fun movie. Good people. Uh, it was a good group, and so yeah, Carpenter was easy to work. I ended up doing something else for him too. Starman. He wanted me to design that. I did uh, the consulting, the visual consulting, and I did a second unit directing for him. So that was cool. And it's interesting how that movie. It was a small movie. It was quite popular. Yeah.
Yeah, as a Gen X guy, see, I was a teenager in the '80s, so I
Yeah.
was Starman, and then of course in '88, I remember Everybody's All American. You were tied to that project also. I remember that movie because I'm a big sports guy too, so that was amazing.
Uh,
Me being from the deep South and it being about let's see, Everybody's All American. That was the Billy Cannon story. So
that was interesting. Yeah, that's where I met this young lady that I ended up being married to now for 34 years.
oh, okay.
So Taylor Hackford is a great guy. So we had a good time on that football thing.
I also noticed on your some of your information that you're fixing to celebrate your 39th birthday in May, 21st of May.
39th?
39th. You quit counting. You're like the females, right? You
Yeah,
just quit counting before you
39th.
get to 40, right?
How about 88?
Woo, 88.
Yeah.
I can only imagine the amount of things that you've had a chance to witness in your time here on this earth. Let me ask you a question. I know Close Encounters was one of your a big project you worked on. Also, in the late, well, I guess the early to middle 50s, early 60s, I know sci-fi movies were a big deal. Everything was, from another world type deal. I know even the movie Back to the Future kind of made a reference to it about how they, the spaceman that can't, he traveled, he
Yeah.
looked like a spaceman. Was that type of influences that you grew up on? Did that help influence a lot of your actual art direction?
Actually, I was part of the influence. I did a movie called the id. I worked as an animator when I was 19 at Disney, and there was a movie that had this id. And so what happened was the MGM. It was. I'm trying to think how this went. It was. MGM was doing this movie,
Mm-hmm.
and they had this creature that was animated. So rather than MGM do it, they farmed it out to Disney. And I was just started at Disney. I was very fortunate. I ended up assisting the animator on it, and it, it became a very popular thing. So I was very that was a big sci-fi movie, and can't think of the name now. I will. Jerry, do you remember the movie I did the id for? Oh, okay. Never mind. If it's important, I'll go over there and look on the shelf. But anyway,
Hey, that was quite a while. You said you were 19 years old when you worked on that project.
actually, yeah, I was 19 when I started at Disney. I was at
Just a
Disney
kid.
for 2 years,
Just a
and I
kid.
started as in betweener. I ended up becoming a assistant animator, which generally takes years, but it was just fortunate, just a lot of luck. A Forbidden Planet
Oh,
was
forbidden.
the name of
Okay.
it. And Walter Pigeon and Anne Francis was in it, and it was a
I
big,
actually know what you're talking about, Forbidden Planet. Yeah.
big movie at the time.
Yes,
And
sir, it was.
I was so young, and that was just a fluke. I got the job because I knew somebody that knew the guy that did the hiring, and he started me as special effects, and it just and I ended up working with the top guy in a few months. So, yeah, so I ended up staying there for about 2 years, but I really wanted to get into live action,
Right, right.
become a set designer.
Well, you put in quite a few years. I'm what? I mean, how many years were you actually active? I know. In the latter part of your life now, you've kind of wound down. You do a lot of interviews and stuff like you're doing with us now. You stayed active to what, around 2000, a little after 2000?
Yeah, the last thing I did that was um, uh, PC and the web, and that was a part animation, part live action. We shot it in Canada, and it never got finished. They ran out of money, and that would be 2002, I think, when it was canceled.
Okay.
And then I had projects with Bill Gilmore, who was very involved in Jaws, and we had projects. I mean, I was going to direct a movie about Formula One racing, and I scouted all over Europe, and I had Jim Brolin was going to be the actor in it. We came back, the studio had been sold, so that got canceled. It goes on how many things in the movie business. You hear about the successes, but if you talk to some of the people where they try to develop a movie for years and then it either happens or the money falls out. So I was into that kind of thing for a while, just wanting to direct. You know, after I did everybody's All American, my wife, before she was my wife, Jerry, I had a picture called Adventure One, and we worked on it for 6, 7 months, designing it and everything is good. Then the money fell out on that, so you could spend a lot of time on things that never happened.
Right, right.
Taylor Hackford, before I did Everybody's All American, there was a movie called 1968, which we were supposed to do, and I scouted Thailand, I scouted all over. We got back, that one fell out. It's just you read. I just finished a biography of Barbara Stewart, Barbara. But what, dear? Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't. This biography Barbara Streisand wrote, and she was very successful. But there are a number of projects that she started that didn't happen because the money fell out or something. But no, the movie business is a rough business. It could be very, very difficult.
Well, to me, you talking about different projects and the way they played out. Some fell through, some were
Yeah.
extremely successful. If you had one project that it had to be made. You had all your resources available. What's that one project that you would have liked to have seen through fruition?
Well, I would think out in front, because I raced cars, Formula cars, for about 8 years. Uh, I did a picture with Hitchcock called Torn Curtain, and Paul Newman was in it. and he was interested in cars, and I took him and I put him in my race car. So I got him interested in racing. So that was a big thing in my life, and it was going to be pretty exciting, and I was going to go all over Europe and the race cars and stuff. So that never got finished, and never got, So yeah, I would have liked to have finished that one.
That would have been amazing when it finished. All right, now let's flip the coin now. What's one project that you're kind of glad that for whatever reason you were not tied to?
Oh, well, there was a project. What was that one? That's hard to say, because then I'm going to have to say I didn't like this person.
Yeah, we don't want to. That's right. I forgot. We don't want to burn a bridge, because you never know. You might decide to jump back in the game at any day now.
No, there were some negative people I worked with.
Okay, well, it's Hollywood. There's going to be that. So
there was a couple projects that I was very unhappy with, and I was one with Arthur Penn. I liked him, but the writer Patty Chayefsky was very difficult, and I worked on that, and we planned that, and then they fired Arthur Penn, and I really liked him, so I quit, and a bunch of people. So those things happen, All
right, let's shift gear. We're going to talk about, because of the anniversary of the actual filming anniversary is coming up in May for Jaws. We're going to talk about Jaws for just a few minutes, and then we might jump into something else. First of all, I need to share something with you, okay? I told you earlier, I was a Gen X guy, okay? Yeah. I personally did not get an opportunity to see the original Jaws in the theater. I actually had to watch it on VHS. And for our younger viewers, they have no idea what VHS is, but it was an amazing thing. VHS was. Yeah, I did get an opportunity to see Jaws 2 and Jaws 3. I don't want to be critical, because I know you were tied to the project, but I was not a huge fan of the third Jaws movie. It was
why?
I don't know, the 3D. I don't know what that phase was with the 3D, because there was a lot of movies being made 3D in that.
Not at that time, no.
I'm saying the three. You know what I'm talking about, though. The industry went through that whole deal about 3D. Everything needed to be 3D. A lot of horror movies they tried to make 3D, which were not good. I mean, they were well. A lot of those B-rated horror movies weren't that good anyway. But your first one. Let me tell you about your first.
Yeah, but let me tell you, that's not fair about Jaws 3D, because they weren't making any 3D movies at that time.
Right.
So you've got it wrong.
Well, I mean, that's true. Y'all did kind of set the standard.
And we had to make new cameras.
Well, and the most insane part of that is, if you think about it, your Jaws franchise really set the standard for everything.
Okay, but let me just explain something. Okay, so what happened was, because you brought up Jaws 3D and you said bad things about it, I want to explain something.
Okay.
I was working on a picture in New York called The Ninja. Okay. Worked on it for 6-7 months, got to Japan, came back. The studio got sold. It was over. So I went back to LA, and Verna Fields, who won the Academy Award for Jaws, she's Universal. Now she's a vice president. She has an office there. So I went to see her. I used to hang out there. And she said, Joe, they're doing a terrible thing here. They're trying to make a movie called Jaws 3 People 0 to make fun of all the people that made the most successful movie they made.
Okay.
I said, you can't believe it. Yes, Joe Dante, they're going to do it. They want to make fun. And I said, but that's so rude, I mean, so anyway, I think Spielberg talked them out of it. And a television producer, Alan Landsberg, bought the rights. Mm-hmm. She said, why don't you go talk to him about maybe, So I went to talk to him, and he was a really cheap guy. He says, I don't know, we're not going to build a sharks. We'll just use phony, stock footage. So the first script was about ocean parks. The shark comes into an ocean park and people are scared. Mm-hmm. So he says, you could produce it. I said, no, either I direct it or forget it. So I went scouting with the writer. We went to an ocean park in Florida, and there was a theater, a little theater, and they were doing a film about underwater, all of the underwater things in 3D. And so I came out, and the writer said, "What do you want to do it in 3D?" I said, "No, make it Jaws 3D." So that's not that way. It doesn't look like a sequel. It's just Jaws 3D, and uh, because everybody was skeptical about making it. So I remember doing a drawing of a shark coming at you, and I did 3D, Jaws test. So I took it to Landsberg, and he said, "Let's take it to Universal." I took it to the president there, said Scheinberg, and he looked at it. He says, "Can I have this?" I said, "Yeah, you're the head of the studio." Yeah. So he took it to Lou Wasserman, who was the head, and they loved it. And they said, "Good, we're going to do it in 3D, and you'll direct it." All right. They had not done a 3D movie at that time.
Mm-hmm.
They had old cameras going back from the 50s and stuff, two cameras where. So we started the project. I said, "We really need to get a camera made." In England, they were making a smaller camera so that you'd have the right and left eye on one piece of film.
Right.
So anyway, and I just had a struggle with this producer. Okay. So I make the movie the same length as Jaws 1 and 2, 2 hours and 3 minutes. But the studio says, Jaws 3D, if we cut it down by a half hour, we could get 5 screenings a day instead of 4. Didn't give a damn about what it did to the movie. Do you understand?
I was thinking, because I didn't remember it being anywhere close to 2 hours.
It was 1 hour and 35 minutes.
Yeah.
And it cut out, and the critics were criticizing me for not making it more personal, not more. And the reason they did that, they could have more. And now they were making, because of the success, more 3D movies, and they wanted to get Jaws 3 out of there. And so it was terribly unfair. If you
did get it. You did get it. Yeah, you got a bad shake there. So the crazy thing is now is you got movies now that run 2 hours and 20 and 2 hours and 40 minutes. And
what was 3 hours was the one about the atomic bomb.
Oh yeah, I don't even remember how long ago this been. I sat through JFK, which I'm a big history guy. Yeah. I sat through JFK. I felt like I was there all day.
Oppenheimer was almost 3 minutes or 3 hours.
Yeah.
And anyway, so that's the bottom line with Jaws 3, and I get a little offended when people. Well, how about they make Jaws 4? That died.
Yeah.
I mean, Jaws 3 made millions of dollars. Jaws 4, nobody talks about that. That opened and closed.
Yeah, anyway. What you'll have to do is you'll have to send me the 2 hour version to where I can watch the whole project.
Okay. Anyway,
if we can find it somewhere.
We can on to something else.
So 4 minutes. I want to talk to you about 4 minutes. Okay, 4 minutes that terrified me as a child for many years. You traumatized me with 4 minutes. Because the actual, and I didn't even realize this until I went and did a little deal of digging. The shark in the original Jaws movie was actually only on screen for 4 minutes total. I thought it was more than that, but according now, first of all, let me back up a second. I pulled this off of Jaws, fan page website deal on the internet, and the internet, everything you read on there is true. So I feel like it's more than that, but if it is 4 minutes, you traumatized me for years with just 4 minutes of actual Bruce on screen.
Not just 4 minutes; it's how it's used.
That's what I'm saying. You traumatized me.
30 seconds could be traumatizing.
Yeah,
I mean,
know.
Think of Psycho and think of some of those movies. It didn't. You weren't. A lot of minutes in the shower with.
Yeah,
it was there. So, okay, let me just give you an example. The shark comes across by the boat and it's going by and it goes away. Well, that's 15, 20 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
All right. How many of those do you have? The shark comes up and Scheider sees it, says, "We're going to need a bigger boat." Well, okay. 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004. Boom. 4 or 5 seconds. You don't hold it for 2 minutes.
I know.
And the shark comes into the cabin and he puts the thing in the mouth. Okay. Boom. Boom. What do we got? Another 20, 25 seconds. So 4 minutes is a lot of use if you think about it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Though the movie was a little over 2 minutes. 2 hours long. You said, and in just four total minutes, you traumatized a generation.
Well, yeah, but you traumatize them with the barrels.
Oh, I'm telling
You
you,
traumatize them with the sharks coming, and So there's scary movies are sometimes traumatized with very little. Is what's creeping around. Anyway, so
let's see. You said 2 hours and 3 minutes. That's 123 minutes runtime.
What's that?
And 123 minutes runtime, and the shark didn't even make his first appearance, like real appearance, until 80 minutes into the movie.
Yeah.
You are a genius, sir.
Yeah. Well, just think what happened before that. The little Kittner kid gets killed.
Yeah. Alex Kittner.
Somebody else, the girl on the beach gets killed. Mm-hmm. We don't see the shark then when Chrissy gets killed, the very first beginning. Right. But it's scary, isn't it?
Yes,
it's scary without seeing the shark. And the Kittner kid, I directed that. You see very little of the shark. It's just he's on a raft and boom, he's gone. So we didn't linger on the shark because they move. They move quick,
right?
And so anyway, that's.
I'm telling you, the first Jaws movie, especially with the switcheroo, with the tiger shark that they catch, and suddenly the problem's solved, but it's really not solved. I mean, you guys, it was amazing. It was the production was absolutely amazing.
It was. It had its problems. There's no question. One of the big problems was not the shark, was the water. And I'll go over that as quick as I can. When I scouted the locations, I talked to Peter Benchley, and I said, "Where did you shoot this for?" Because he's from the East Coast. He's from Nantucket, and he said Sag Harbor, all these various places. And I said, "Okay." I said, "So he says, go to Nantucket, and you'll see my wife and my mother and father lived there." And I said, "What about this other island, Martha's Vineyard?" And he says, I've never been there. I don't think there's anything there. Anyway, bottom line, what I was looking for was a little village, beautiful village with white picket fences that the shark could come and destroy that whole pleasantry. A fishing village, which I could build Quint's shack. And then I needed a bay, a beautiful bay. And I needed, because of the shark on the platform, I needed 25 feet of depth, and I needed a 2-foot tide. And because the West Coast is 12-foot tide, so the East Coast was a 2-foot tide, which meant the tide doesn't go by, so you could see the shark. If it was a big tide, you'd see too much or you wouldn't see it. So basically, that was great and it was perfect, and it was on the location, except that was in January. Come May, the place was loaded with boats from Mariana's Port. They were and Stephen was very rigid. He wanted to see those guys isolated. He wanted no other boats. Quint breaks the radio so they can't communicate. So it's basically 3 guys out there by themselves and a shark. And so it was extremely difficult. We were trying to shoot with open water, and there would be all these sailboats. So we'd run and say, "Could you sail over here? Could you?" And some people would cooperate. Other people were just stubborn. "No, I'm going to stay where I want." And so it wasn't always waiting for the shark to work. It was waiting for a clear ocean. Also, oceans could be smooth and oceans could be rough. So to blame it all on the shark, it was just
right.
It was just the environment.
Talking about it taking a while, the original production schedule was like 50 some odd days. I read somewhere 55 days or something like that.
We were supposed to be out of there by June.
Yeah, and then it ran into
June,
like
June,
150
July,
days.
August. Yeah,
Yeah,
we were extremely over schedule and over budget. And when we got back to the studio, we were not heroes.
yeah.
We were the worst crew because the shark didn't work. And what they did is they just took the sharks and put them out in the back lot and let them rot.
Mhm.
And then we had a couple more shots left. We had a shot that we did in my driveway and one in the swimming Vernon Fields swimming pool that the studio didn't even know about.
Oh,
And I'll tell you that story. This is Stephen they cut the movie.
right.
They went to Texas at a little theater to have a screening.
Hmm.
I didn't go, but Stephen came back and said it was good. He says, I had 4 screens. I think I could get 5 screens if I have the fisherman's. Dreyfus goes down. We shot this thing on a lake, and Dreyfus has a shark tooth, and he drops it, and he goes down and look, and there's a hole in the hull, and the fisherman's head comes out. It was just frightening. So he wanted to do a hull with a head, and he also wanted the hull with the shark hitting, going boom, show me the way to go home, boom, boom, and I want to see the hull breaking in water. So I built the hull because I have a shop here, and we shot that with a hose in my driveway, and then we went to Vernon's pool. Now get this, the studio didn't know we were doing this. I built the hull, didn't get paid for it. We stole the head out of the makeup department, stole the camera, got everything together. The studio had no idea the movie was done. We shot the thing in Vernon's pool. So then we had dailies, Jaws dailies, and the studio, it can't be Jaws. Jaws is finished. We were already, had a screening. So they saw the shots we had, and Stephen cut them in. And it was amazing because people freaked out when they saw that head coming out. So basically, I want to just say this. So we had a screening in Lakewood. Now, most of us that have worked with the shark makes a lot of weird noises because of all these valves and things. So you don't have the John Williams music. Da, 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 da. You just have the sound. So when Stephen would go cut, people would laugh because of the funny sounds the shark made. I mean, obviously they cut the sound out and they added new stuff when we did
Right.
it. So a lot of us felt that at the screening that people weren't going to be scared. They were going to laugh at the shark. They're making all this noise. Well, you put John Williams music and the sound. They didn't laugh. They screamed, and the studio executives were sitting behind us. They freaked out. Oh my God, I think we have a successful movie. Now, movies were released for 2 or 3 weeks or whatever. Never, today they release them for thousands of shows. So they made it the biggest release ever. It was the 450 theaters. They're going to open on 450 theaters. That's a big commitment. And it changed. It was in June. It changed the whole release of films. All the popular movies came out in the summer now. Star
Hmm.
Wars, but prior to that, prior to Jaws, it was never a summer release.
Well,
Big movies were done in the fall for the Academy Award.
that's the point I was trying to make is you guys are trailblazers in everything because the delay that pushed you to the summertime
Yeah.
was the best thing that could ever happen for the movie
Oh well,
because you established the summer blockbuster.
yeah. And on Close Encounters, we made a mistake and we didn't release it then because they took too long to do special effect, and we got released in November. And there was a little movie called Star Wars that was released in June.
Yeah.
And I was nominated. It was interesting because I was nominated for the Academy Award for production design. And Star Wars won. And I talked to Lucas, and he said he came into Star Wars, the Close Encounters set. He says, "This is incredible. We've never built anything like this. On Star Wars, we just had the same sets, so we repainted them. but everybody was looking at the visual effects and they thought that was production design. But then I won the British Academy Award from against the same English guys that won there. Anyway, it Close Encounters could have been a big financial, gain, but it was so. But it got a lot of awards and won the British Academy Award. Anyway, what else?
All right, talking about Close Encounters, since you mentioned it, I've got to ask, and it's all over the internet, so it's got to be true. George Lucas showed up on the set and was messing around with one of the Bruces, and he got his head stuck in the actual apparatus of the shark during
on Jaws.
Yes.
Yeah, he did something, was climbing around in Tyler. So I don't know. Yeah, something got hooked up, or maybe a tooth caught his shirt or something. But yeah,
and then, of course,
they started playing around with the shark. George and somebody else that was there, and I think he decided to climb in the shark's mouth. And
just think, if that would have gone bad, we'd have missed out on all the George Lucas projects.
Yeah. George did some good stuff.
All right. We have covered a absolutely ridiculous amount of stuff, but I knew when we started talking, we had a lot that we were going to try to cover in a short period of time. Joe, I can't thank you enough. The best way I could think to finish this up, if you got just a small piece of advice for any young man or young woman that's going to try to follow in your footsteps, let's say, what would you say? Well, first of all, if you were talking to 18-year-old self you, what piece of advice would you give 18-year-old self you?
Don't give up. Don't give up. I could do it. In other words, you never say I can't until you try. Here's the thing. Basically, there are people that work in the industry and they're just happy to get a paycheck. They go to work, they punch in, they do whatever. Then there are people that say, let's push it a little bit. When I was doing night gallery, I had 25 sets a week I was doing. I was a young guy, and I had 2 or 3 directors I'd have to deal with. And you just keep pushing. I could do it, And other people that just lay back, get their paycheck. So you don't want to be one of those guys. You want to see how far you could push it. I mean, I did some little television shows where they never built any sets. And I said, why don't we build some sets here? And the producers said, because the other art director didn't want to do any work. And basically they were excited. So push it. Don't lay back, find a way of doing it. Like he said, can you build a shark? I had no idea I could build a shark. I didn't build a shark, Bob Matty. I was so fortunate to find Bob Matty and Roy Arbogast and these various people and work with them, and it was all new. It was, so you get a film, you get a script. Okay, what can I do with this? So just never take the easy way out. This is my thought.
That's some of the best advice. I mean, that goes across any type of occupation or any type of endeavor in life. That's some fantastic, and that's a real gem, a real pearl of wisdom. And I'm glad you were able to share it on this show with us.
Well, I was happy to do it.
Joe, I can't thank you enough. And hey, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this conversation Joe and I have had. He's a wealth of knowledge, and he said he has had an amazing career, and I'm glad he was able to share some of those highlights with us.
Well, I feel good. My life is good. We're going to Egypt in a couple of days. I'm a little concerned about that. We made that plan years ago. We didn't know there was going to be a war. No. Hopefully it's okay. I spent a lot of my time sculpting. I just do a lot of wood sculptures. And so, yeah, I'm very pleased, very happy. Got 2 wonderful daughters and a wonderful wife. So it's good.
Well, I'm certainly glad you had time to sit down and talk to us, because this has been an absolute treat and a privilege.
My pleasure.
All right, guys, check us out next week. Be next Monday. We'll have a new episode. I want to thank Joe again for coming on tonight. And as always, guys, we'll see